I've been asked to speak by Stephen, who is my partner. You probably know him from the Irish Inquiry. I have nothing prepared, but I just want to say a few things. I'm from Dublin, but I come to Mayo every weekend. But I wanted to talk about what the situation is like where I live, because you have not seen what is coming yet, and I have, or at least I've seen a part of it anyway. So where I live is about 85% foreign nationals, and most people are fine, you know, but I can walk down the street on any given day, walk into the supermarket, and I don't hear an Irish conversation. I hear foreign people everywhere. My child is one of 30 children in her class, and she's the only Irish child. She came home crying from school a few weeks ago because she doesn't understand what any of her friends are saying. The children revert back to their own languages when they're not being taught in the class, and she's quite young, so most of the time is spent during the day playing, and she literally cannot understand the conversations around her. The children are lovely. I don't have anything against these children. I have nothing against them. That's not the issue here. But it's not good for those children either, because a lot of them are coming in and they're not being given language supports and they don't understand English. So for all the children it's a bad situation because it's disrupting the learning. But when Halloween came around there a few months ago, last year she was allowed to dress up, the year before last she was allowed to dress up, this year she wasn't allowed to dress up. And when I asked the school why, they said they didn't want to offend people. So there's things that are changing, and that's a very small example of the traditions that are going to change. But I want to talk as well about where I live, as again, just the safety aspect of it. I don't go for a walk around the park during the day with my child anymore. I have a big dog and I don't go for a walk by myself anymore. I very rarely leave my house because where I live is so unsafe. And that is the reality that you're facing if you don't make a stand. And I understand it's really, really hard to, you know, be called names and all of these things, but you have to stand up on behalf of your children and the future of the country. The landscape of this country is changing completely. And if you're okay with that, fine, but I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that for my child. A certain amount of immigration is to be expected, and it's normal and natural for any country to experience that, but we've gone way beyond what is normal and acceptable. It changes everything. It changes absolutely everything, and when it changes, there's no going back. There's absolutely no going back. And one of the problems is there's no background checks. I know Leo Varadkar said that there is, but the Department of Justice has, you know, under duress, being forced to admit that this is not the case. So when someone comes in and makes an asylum application, the government is essentially forbidden from contacting the government in their country. That's if they even know where they've come from, because they're destroying their passports on the way in. But they're forbidden from contacting their government of origin because that person could be fleeing a regime, or they could be claiming they're fleeing a regime. So from that point of view, there's no checks. They're saying that they check fingerprints against Europol, but the Gardaí have admitted that they don't do that. And the Department of Justice put that in an FOI response to Michael McNamara and Carol Nolan, 2 TDs. They're saying that they check people against the Schengen system and Eurodac, but neither of those are criminal databases. So everybody who walks in here is not being checked. Not one person, not one single solitary person. And it's mostly men coming in. And the problem I have with that is, I'm not saying people who are coming in are automatically murderers or criminals or rapists or whatever, but if you were a criminal and you were escaping your you didn't want to have a record following you around? Wouldn't you come to a country where nobody's going to ask you who you are? Wouldn't you do that? Because I know I would. I would want to set up a new life somewhere else. And sometimes these countries empty out their prisons and they send people to countries like this because they don't want them. So that happened in Venezuela a couple of years ago. There's the dictator there, Nicolas Maduro, emptied out the prisons and sent rapists and murderers to the USA. So how do we know that's not happening? The last thing I want to say is our Justice Minister, Helen McEntee, did a video the other day, which was propaganda, but she's telling us about all the benefits of immigration, and every point she brings up can be refuted very easily. And I've seen very good points that people have made on that. But one thing people haven't pointed out is our body language. Your mouth can lie, but your body won't. And if you watch that woman, she shakes her head several times when she says that what is happening is good for our country. She doesn't believe what she's saying. But she's gone too far now, and there's no turning back for someone like her. But it's not too far for us if we get up and stand up and just stop being fearful of what people think of you. It's a lot worse to live in an unsafe country with no opportunities, no tourism industry. All of these things, they're all going to go if you don't just... If I can do it, anybody can do it. A couple of years ago, I wouldn't have stood in front of a microphone. In fact, I wouldn't have done it a few months ago. I'm trying to do it now to set an example for, other people to try and do it, but also for my child, Please put your children first and your country first, and just don't care what anyone else thinks. That's pretty much all I have to say.